Okay, welcome to week 4 of Sustainable Information Corporate Governance. What we're looking at today is some general principles about information governance. Last week we looked at the broader principles of corporate governance and what governance meant, and you did some research on that. And we'll be having a little look at that in a bit. And so try and connect what you did last week, which is the highest level, the top level of an organisation. And now we're coming down one level within an organisation to the idea of information governance. And I want to have a look at some of the basic principles which underlie the whole approach we're taking, which will allow us to get from catastrophe, the sort of failed information governance that we've looked at over the last few weeks, and we've looked at in IT services management last year. And we're going to look at some broad principles, broad frameworks, which give us the sorts of questions which are important. And to do that, we're going to actually look at the ISO standard, the International Standards Organization standard 27002. I want to see how that gives us a very, very firm basis for understanding what we need to do and asking ourselves and our project teams and our sponsors and all the various other stakeholders, what is really, really important, and how do we get from this idea of a project, an idea about keeping a business running with IT systems, and developing that into something that ultimately will become successful and will not be one of those failed or challenged projects that the Standards Group report on. Now, if you look at any set of principles, whether it's the ITIL set or the ISO 27002 or any of the other ones, the COBIT included, three things we have to remember about information and information governance. We must remember that information needs to stay confidential as appropriate. We need integrity, which is that the data actually relates correctly within itself, that the linkages are appropriate, and that the information is available to the users at appropriate times. Now, if you are thinking about providing a online banking service, your customers actually think about their needs as 24/7. But inside a business, it may be appropriate to have serious lockdown to these formal hours of work, which might be, I don't know, 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 or 6 o'clock at night, or if there are good business reasons, you can open up that availability to other times. You might want to lock it down, accessible only inside the organizational premises, or it may be under with certain reasons, business reasons and justification, you can open it up for access from home. It just depends. Now, if you think about the university, almost everything we have is available pretty much 24/7. Whether for you to access in course resources, or your personal records through PeopleSoft, you can have web access to that any time of the day or night, any time of the year, except for a few times when we need to shut things down to do maintenance and upgrades, etc. And the confidentiality, well, we again have some really important aspects that some of our data is really, really tightly, needs to be very tightly controlled. And in businesses, typically, you've got things like personnel records, payroll records, and intellectual property. That is the information about our products and services, which are our own very special information that we do not wish our competitors or customers or suppliers to have access to, because that's our information that we have created. And you might think of the pharmaceutical organizations about how to brew a particular drug. It'll be patented with their 15, 17-year lifespan. But you do not want your competitors getting access to the primary research 5 years before you've actually got to a position to be able to patent it. Some companies are so paranoid about the problems of patents effectively disclosing the secret that they don't actually patent anything unless they absolutely have to. And the integrity is connecting things together. And in today's big data world, some of the biggest problems we have in the social media world is ensuring that we're connecting the right entities together. Here's a Twitter feed that says it's so-and-so, and here's a Facebook page, and here's a LinkedIn page, and here's my master data inside my company. How can I be sure that I'm connecting those different social media networks together? When I was at a conference in Frankfurt back in June, a SaaS conference, one of the guys I was talking to was saying he'd seen only the day before a problem on German TV, where people had been looking to connect these different social media accounts together, and they had discovered that the usual technique we use, which is sort of full set of names, Richard John Self, and date of birth, that is not functional. You can get 40, 50 people in Germany with the same set of data. In this country, same. If your surname is Smith, the probability of having several people with exactly the same set of Christian names and surname and the same date of birth is very high. So integrity becomes critically important as one of those issues in big data. So 3 crucial principles: confidentiality, integrity, and availability, the CIA. So what I want you to do for the first part, up and for the next sort of 3/4 of an hour, is to do some research. Looking at those 3 principles of confidentiality, integrity, and availability, find a whole set of resources that help you understand the fine detail about confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And academic sources, professional sources are excellent. 2 little hints here. 1, search for information governance principles. And secondly, think about the fact that most of the sources that are going to be really valuable are going to be professional advice on the professional and business and industry sources, rather than trying to search through the academic sources, the library-related academic journals. So much more valuable to look for in Google rather than inside library systems. So that's the first thing to do in terms of research. What I want you to then think about is which business sectors provide most information about information governance and why. And you'll find that there's an awful lot in 1 or 2 industries that really go to town about these principles of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So that's the first part of the analysis, to get the broader picture of why it's so important and to whom it's so important. And then I want you to start thinking carefully about the nature of these sources, the nature of the advice, and then try and work out in your groups and your discussions, how do these different sources, remembering to build your working bibliography all the time, and I'd expect in this particular section, you easily get 5 to 10 sources here that you should put into your working bibliography. And they will give you some insights and understanding of those 3 principles, how they're important, why they're important, and to whom they're important. So 3 of the 6 critical questions. And then I also want you to pick up ISO 27002, and you can get that through the British Standards Online link in the journals, the electronic journals sort of area. And you will need a copy of ISO 27002 available to you all the time. So download a copy of it from BSOL, and you'll just have to search for 27002 in the little search box there in British Standards Online, and then you'll be able to download it. And so first part of the research is find those sources on the CIA, and then get yourself a copy of 27002, and then look at the various chapters. So just look at the basics at the front of the standard and begin to work out which of those chapters in ISO 27002 give you the most relevant supporting questions in relation to those three principles. And then you'll need to get hold of the research into the rest of 27002, because it is, for me, probably one of the most valuable guidelines and frameworks for governance that we have around us. It's been developed over the last 15, 16 years, initially in the UK, and then through the International Standards Organization it became developed and developed with inputs from across the world to create this very, very powerful framework. There's various other sections in the 27,000 range and the 20,000 range that are all enormously valuable to you. So 20,000 as well as 27,002, and you might as well get all of the 27,000 from 27,000 to 27,000, I think it goes to about 12 or so now, and you need to pick all of those up. 27,002, however, to me is the critical one. It is a list of 180, 200 questions, ultimately, that you can use to evaluate and develop your project, to make sure that you're doing all of the right things, and by using section in the 2013 version, which was released last year, section 0.2 provides the critical framework, the three pillars for information governance. Risk assessment, compliance with external obligations, laws, regulations, contracts and so on, and then the third pillar is compliance with your internal obligations, which are your internal standards and procedures and policies and all that sort of thing. So there's quite a lot of work here to develop the basic foundation for your activities in this whole field of sustainable information corporate governance. And one of the things you'll notice from 27002, and actually the whole of the 27000 series, is it is currently called information security. And that's kind of because that's the international consensus on it. However, if you actually look carefully at what it is actually saying in 27002, it is very, very much more powerful than that. And as colleagues in IT Governance Limited and also the British Standards Organisation, to whom I've had chats, actually their belief or their recommendation is this is information governance. And the Calder-Watkins book on 27002 is very much information governance. It doesn't talk about information security on the book cover, it is information governance. So we're all pointing in the same direction with ISO 27002, it's governance, not just security. And then the final part of the action is going to be which are the critical elements of 20,000 that relate to the principles of information governance. And I want you to also think about how does that one add weight and understanding to 27002 to meet those confidentiality, integrity and availability challenges that we need as the principles behind information governance. Any questions so far? Because that basically sets out the work for the rest of today, subject to a little bit of extra input that I'll give you in about an hour's time, that will kind of begin to develop some linkages into your assignment. And because I want you to start thinking about and researching for and planning your assignment from now on, so that particularly in the workshop section, you know, I can actually be working with you. You can be asking me questions individually or small groups or the whole group to help build your understanding and develop a really good approach to your assignment. Okay, guys? Go to it.